Okay, welcome back. Next we're going to add another image. So I'm going to grab all these guys and just do a copy and go down to here and do a paste. That way I can just go through this rather quickly. I'm going to call this one 2, 2, 2, and 2. And I'm going to go pick up the image called moon. I'm using moon because I could probably spell it without messing up. And now what I want to do is just add this guy onto my container. So it's ID2. Cool? All right, let's go see what this thing looks like. Now, what's going to happen is all these things are going to be crammed into each other. I mean, the label is going to be touching the text field is going to be touching the image. And, oh, come on. I typed in moon, didn't I? Oh, ha ha ha. Missed one. All right. They're going to be touching, which is not good visual, particularly if you got images. Images that are touching each other, you won't be able to tell when one starts. And I mean, the hot air balloon is not circling the moon. Okay. So to fix that, one of the things you can do here is to add a number and 10 pixel spacing. Don't really worry about what a pixel is, but it allows me to add spacing. All I have to do is just add 10 onto my VBox, and then everything is cool. All right, so let's run this one more time. And so now these guys won't be touching each other, which is actually a pretty cool idea. Yay! Okay, cool. There's one called padding, which really works with containers. It basically means how much stuff is on the outside. In other words, there's spacing on the inside between the items in the VBox, and then the padding would be on the outside of the VBox. Since I only have one container, I really can't demo that. Hey, let's switch this back to an HBox just for the heck of it. Let's just here, just out of curiosity. Let's see what it looks like when it's horizontal. Okay, kind of cool. Okay, now often when you have things, let's say I have a bunch of these labels I want to put in. Like I want to prompt you for your name and your age and all sorts of other things, right? So I'm going to go ahead and grab these guys, okay, and create me a second batch of these guys. So I'm going to say something. This is going to be LB age, maybe. It says enter your age. And then this is going to be TFH. Okay, I'm going to go back to vertical. Now, so this is a common thing, right? You'd expect to have, I'm going to go here and do LB age and then TF age. Right, I'm just adding these guys in. And so this is a very common thing that you would have a list of, labels and text areas and text fields and things of that nature, right? I mean, this should look normal-ish, okay? Except I really want these guys to be side by side. So how in the world can I have this be side by side, but the rest of it be vertical? I want these guys to be vertical, but I don't want those guys to be. See what I'm talking about? So I need another container, okay? So what I need to do here is I need to create me an HBox. So an HBox called, I don't know, prompts. C prompts is equal to new HBox. And it contains LB name, TF name. Actually, I probably should have called this one C name. Did I already call it that? Nope. Good. I'm going to call this one C name. And this is just going to, so that's the first one. And then I'm going to do another HBox. And it's going to be called C age. It's going to be new HBox. LB age and TF age, like this. Okay, that kind of makes sense. And so instead of doing these guys here, I'm now going to take these guys out and replace them with some other H boxes. So this is going to be C name. Oh, I already have something called C name and C age. Okay, so let's call this one, I don't know, main. And then this is going to be C main. So what I've done is I've taken this and nested a container inside a container. So I have two controls in a H box, two more controls in an H box, and then both those H boxes are inside a V box. Now, don't let your head spin too much, because the idea of chaining these things together just kind of makes sense. You can overlap them, and so now I have this guy, and I have, oh, the position guy. Yeah, I'm gonna have to fix that, huh? Okay, because this is not called C name anymore. It's C main. Sorry. Missed one. Okay, one more time. Okay, now it's fairly obvious these guys don't really line up, and that I don't like that. I mean, you know, because the labels were a different size, it's kind of like, ugh, I don't like that. So let's do some tweaking. So what I basically want to do is I want these guys to all be the same. So you do that typically. You do that with a grid container. So I would not do it the way I did it now. So I'm going to uncomment out a bunch of this stuff. And what instead I'm going to do is I'm going to create a grid pane. So this one's going to be called grid pane. How about GP prompts is equal to new grid pane. Okay, kind of makes sense. And of course, I got the little red squiggly saying, I don't know what you're talking about. You need an import. Okay, cool. Okay, now I need to put the items in a 2x2 grid. So GP prompt add, I want to put the first label in there, LB name. And it's going to be in coordinate 0, 0, the upper left-hand corner, right? Cool. And then I want the other one to be next to it, horizontally, right? The TF name. So TF name would be like this. And then GP prompt add the LB age guy, right? That kind of makes sense. And then GP prompt add TF age 1, 1. So I built me a 2x2 grid that's probably going to do a little better job than this guy. So I'm going to comment these guys out and go down to here and change this to GP prompt. And I notice that I always type those things backwards. Text field. Cool. All right, let's run this, see what it looks like. And it should make things line up an awful lot better than they did before. At least the labels are all lined up and the text is all, so that kind of makes sense. Now, the only problem here is I need some gaps between these things in this thing. So that's what it's called. It's called gap, believe it or not. And so I can go in here and just set a gap. So I can say GP prompt, and there's two different gaps I can set. I can do set an H gap, maybe 5 pixels. Let's go ahead and do a GP prompt set a V gap, and you can figure out what that is, right? That's basically the horizontal vertical gapping. Cool. All right, let's run this, see what it looks like now. And it's probably going to look an awful lot better because there's a little bit of spacing between. So they don't exactly touch. You know, they don't touch vertically and they don't touch horizontally either. Now, wouldn't you kind of like it if all these things lined up, it had a text alignment maybe? Okay. So text alignment is a little bit more complicated. because I don't know why. They just made it a little more complicated. So when I go to these labels here, I have to go in here and do something slightly different. I have to use a static method here. I don't know why they did that, but that's I didn't make this stuff up. So I'm going to say in here and then say set H alignment, and the node I'm talking about is going to be LB name, okay? And I want it to be right justified, wouldn't you think? Hey, it is fairly obvious. This is like an enumeration, right? H pos, and I want it to be right justified. Okay, let me grab this, I'll do a control, and a paste, and I'll do that same thing onto the other label so that they line up the way I kind of think they should. That's just me. Okay, now let's run it one more time. And now those labels ought to be lined up on the right, and they should make a little bit more sense. At least that's the way I like to see things. I like to see them like this, you know, where the colons line up exactly on the edge. Hey, that's just, I guess, a personal preference. Okay, that's basically all there is. There's a couple things you can do, like set the grid lines visible. Maybe during development, you want to turn the grid lines on so you can see what's going on. And then maybe later you can go in there and start removing them when you're done. Hey, let's say, for example, that I want to set the preferred width for this text box because it's pretty small to type in some stuff. Let's pretend. Okay. So let's go back up to here, and I'm going to do them both because otherwise my text box won't look correct. So I'm going to go here and say TF name set. If I could spell today, TF name set preferred width, and I don't know, 250. I am going to make them the same because otherwise, you know, it'll look kind of ugly. Set preferred width 250. Okay, now let's go see what this looks like now. Maybe 250 won't be enough to be able to actually see. I don't really know. Oh yeah, you definitely can tell the difference now. Okay, so that's how you do a grid. And a typical use for a grid pane is to make labels and text areas line up perfectly. That is an extraordinarily typical thing. Now, you saw us use multiple containers in the same scene, right? Overlapping containers. On page 791, they start talking about it. And, you know, nesting containers is very common. We have a grid container that's nested inside a VBox container. And this is perfectly normal. No one's going to raise an eyebrow. Okay. So next thing we're going to talk about is button controls and events. We haven't even talked about events yet. Okay. So now it's time for us to add some events to this thing. So first thing we're going to do is just add a button so we'll have something to do an event on. And that's the easy part. Adding a button, that's nothing. Okay. So I'm just going to go down here somewhere towards the bottom. Before we do our main, okay, somewhere in here. And I'm going to say button, I don't know, BN submit. Like pretending like we're submitting this thing somehow. We're taking the name and the age and we're submitting it. Is equal to no button, and the text I'm going to say is submit. Okay, and of course I'm going to get little red squigglies because it's never seen a button before in its entire life. And we have to import some stuff. Okay, we got a button. Great, let's run this thing. And, whoa, where'd it go? Oh, I didn't put it in there. Boy, it helps you actually put these things in here after you build them. Button, submit. Cool, let's try that again. And ta-da! Doesn't do anything though. Well, we'll fix that up in just a minute because we're coming up on the 15-minute mark.